Hi, Tommy Heffernan here, Precision Microbes. Welcome back to another Tech in 10, where we take on a technical subject each week in under 10 minutes. So this week it's water. It's a very basic one maybe, but a very important one. So here we go, off we go, 10 minutes. So water, since been involved with Precision Microbes, I'm aware, look, with water, and we think about animal health, it makes sense, but it's often overlooked. But we do a lot of research work in pigs, poultry, obviously calves and horses. And one of the factors we look at a lot is water quality. We're assessing problems on farm. We're looking at our trial work in cows, for example. We've had looked at water carefully, and it's really opened my eyes to the potential of water around animal health and production and performance in cattle, pigs, even in our equine production system. So when we think about water, it's pretty obvious the water makes up a huge percentage of animals' body percentage. It's involved in several functions. So just as a solvent, it's involved in thermoregulation. It carries hormones and so many other things, digestion, regulates acid base, and even structure, like our eyeball structure, etc. So water is essential to health. We know if water goes down, we get dehydration. And check out videos on HydroStem coming up, our new unique liquid electrolyte. We think about a cow will drink 3 or 5 litres per kilo of dry matter intake. So anywhere between 60 to 120 litres. So if grass is wet in the spring, they may drink less, but they're getting water through grass. Horses will drink 30 to 50 litres. They're hindgut fermentators. So when we think about water, it has to be available in our production systems for a start. So the height of the drinker, the number of drinkers, particularly with groups of animals. If we're feeding with nipples, making sure there's enough nipples, say in pig systems. If we've groups of animals in sheds, the number of troughs or water troughs is really important. So the basics are important. We've got to look at drinkers. What does the water look like? Does it look clean? Even troughs outside for animals. Is there green algae in it? Because that can be a real sign that may be impacting health. So looking at water. So it's pretty obvious having enough available water is absolutely key from animal health and production system. When we think about water quality, we think about water generally comes from the mains, or it can be a borehole or a well. And generally, we'll test this and it'll be clean. But what we forget about water is it goes through a series of pipes. And depending on the system, how big the farm is, it often gets to sit in header tanks as well. And farms, as they get bigger, have more and more pipe work. For example, we've pipes going to the milking parlour. Interestingly, I've looked at some over the years, looked at some of the pathogens that cause mastitis. We can pick them up in water. Again, if we look at header tanks going to automated calf feeders, again, if that water has been heated up with warm milk, we spoke about that last week. Even if we've water systems going into stables, if you've got a row of stables in a horse yard, and you think about the end point of that water, why is that important? Because we're going to talk about testing. What about if we've animals indoor in pig systems, which are warmer? This is where I came across really the idea of water quality when I talked to experts in the pig space, looking at, well, we've lots of pipe work going into warm sheds, and if water quality is an issue, we get this thing called biofilm. So while we can test mains and borehole water or well water, what we really need to do is when we start testing water, we need to look inside the system, because if we go into this pipe work, so this is a pipe here, we look at this thing called biofilm. So where we've poor flow or we've issues with hardness in water, we can get the buildup of a layer of slime inside pipes, inside header tanks, which we call biofilm. This glycocalyx is really, bacteria love it, a lot of coliforms love it, and it can be a real issue when we have a build-up of biofilm, because then when we've biofilm in tanks and pipes and are going into drinkers, what's happening is we're getting clean water here, but it's the biofilm in the system is really important. So when we're testing on water on farm, there's two options. We can test at the source, which a lot of people do, but where we actually need to test is consumption. So if you're in an equine yard and you have a row of stables, it's actually, where's the end point? Have you checked the header tank? Have you looked into the header tank? If you have any header tanks in calf, sheep systems, anything, want to look into it. Is there biofilm in there? But we're going to test where water's been consumed. So at automatic feeders, in the milking parlour, in pig systems, at the nipple. We can do a total viable count, which is kind of a count of coliforms. We want that low, and that's simple. That's a potable water sample, essentially. It can be sent to local council. We can look for other pathogens like Pseudomonas, Cryptosporidium, but every farm, every production unit, equine yard has a lot of horses in it. Whatever we want to look at, we should be testing water at the point of consumption once a year as a way of keeping an eye on it. If we think of things that affect biofilm, certainly flow rates can affect it. So anywhere we have the end of lines where flow is reduced, if water is going out to troughs, I've seen it recently going out to troughs in a field where flow rate's an issue. Again, we're looking in, are we seeing algae, are we seeing issues? But biofilm is a thing. So if we've got dirty water here at the end of the system and clean water here, biofilm is your problem. There's other things we need to look at with water as well. Sulfates, particularly with young calves and piglets. If we see high sulfates and maybe nitrates or nitrites are worse than nitrates, that can affect digestive health. Iron and manganese, that can actually be an issue for horses with palatability. If we've iron high enough, we'll see that as an orangeness in water. And then, of course, hardness, which may not be affecting other things, but may affect coliform count. So, big thing with water is we need to start just thinking about it. Need to start testing it on farm and looking at where it may be an issue, certainly at consumption as opposed to source. Water can be treated. There's lots of different options, from peracetic acid to chlorine to hydrogen peroxide. We've worked with a lot of these systems, and we've done a lot of water treatments as part of our plan on kind of farm-based or farm biome trials that we do. It is something we can do. I think people just need to be aware of water quality when they consider overall animal health. We spend a lot of time looking at the environment, nutrition, genetics, and disease management. And I think oftentimes water is overlooked. So that's it for Tech in 10. If you have a subject you want us to cover in Tech in 10, please let us know. And that's it for today. Thanks for listening.